Hello, my name is Peyton Bogert, and I will be doing the information speech. I'm going to go ahead and show my UFID. I am choosing not to use an index card for this speech. In addition, I cannot stand backwards very far because when I do that, the audio cuts out. So for video quality, I will be sitting next to my computer. At this time, I would like my audience member to wave. Thank you so much. Wittgenstein once quipped that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. Before 1817, deaf American citizens did not have access to a language. With the development of American Sign Language, or ASL, the potential for the deaf community became unlimited. After watching this video, you will be gifted an insight on the history of ASL. By listening to this information, you will walk away with the knowledge about the struggles and the triumphs the deaf community faced when creating ASL. By opening your heart to explore the beauty of ASL, you will personally benefit by seeing that there is a whole world of people to learn from. I am an informed instructor on the topic of ASL because of my own personal hearing loss. And in addition, I have done several hours of research regarding the history of ASL. The history of ASL can be broken down into three phases. Phase 1, the initiation of the French Sign Language Revolution. Phase 2, the establishment of deaf universities throughout America. And Phase 3, the creation of Pidgin, Sign Language, and dialect. ASL is a beautiful language, and its roots draw influence from the French Sign Language Revolution. Before the French Sign Language Revolution, there was a negative stigma that the only way you could challenge deafness was by learning how to speak. Sarah Siemens, a deaf advocate, recognized a change in this perspective with the introduction of the work of a French priest named Lepage. Lepage came up with the idea to translate the sounds of the alphabet by using hand signals. Lepage then went out to establish the first manualist and free public sign language university in the world. A picture of Lepage can be seen on your PowerPoint slide. 21 schools were created in France alone because of Lepage's success. Despite the powerful movement started by Lepage, it would be another 66 years before the first deaf university was established in America. Although the development of ASL is fairly recent, it quickly gained followers with the introduction and establishment of deaf universities in America, which signaled phase 2 in the history of ASL. Start ASL, an ASL blog, said that in 1815, Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet studied the applications of French Sign Language and convinced Laurent Clerc to join them in teaching deaf students in America. These influential figures can be seen on your PowerPoint slide. In 1817, the dynamic duo would establish the first deaf school in America. Within the century, Start ASL predicts that more than 30 state-supported residential sign language schools were established in America, including Gallaudet University, which would become the first deaf university in America. With the creation of public school systems, ASL began to be passed on through generations. And with the establishment of deaf universities, ASL became widespread and underwent regionalism as variations began to take form. The development of Pidgin Sign Language and dialect signaled phase 3 in the history of ASL. There are many variations that differ from ASL. Signing Exact English, or SEE, is often taught to hearing parents who have deaf children. To bridge the gap between SEE and American Sign Language, the North Carolina Hearing Loss Association had noticed an increase in the usage of Pidgin Sign Language, or PSE. PSE is a mixture of ASL and SEE. In addition, ASL is continuously evolving. For instance, the word language used to be signed with the letter L. We are now seeing that the word language is being signed with the letter S. After diving into the diverse history of ASL, we can have a better appreciation for it as a language. With the development of dialect, we see where ASL is currently and its potential for future development. When reviewing the history of ASL, it is important to acknowledge the hardships the deaf community faced when establishing American Sign Language. It is essential to remember that without the French Sign Language Revolution, it is likely that ASL may have never found its roots. In addition, the establishment of deaf universities in America allowed it to become a popular form of communication within the deaf communities. Lastly, with the gain of popularity, ASL was able to undergo a period of transition where dialect and pidgin sign language were developed. Although the history of ASL may be brief, a study from Gallaudet predicts that there are more than 500,000 speakers that use ASL. ASL offers beauty to our world. Thank you so much for your time and taking a moment to learn about my deaf culture. At this moment, I would like to open the platform up for any questions.
Where is the University Gallaudet located?
Gallaudet University is actually located in one of the hottest deaf capitals in the world, which would be Washington, D.C. There are so many, the deaf community is so big in Washington, D.C. that they actually have Starbucks where you can actually sign instead of ordering your order in English.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you mentioned that ASL comes or has its link to French and French Sign Language movement. So can somebody who speaks American Sign Language understand somebody who speaks French Sign Language?
No, it is a separate language. However, you would be able to understand French Sign Language more than British Sign Language because British Sign Language follows a different grammar structure, and ASL actually models the French grammar structure more so than English.
You mentioned that. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you can go.
You mentioned that they use a sign language from like an L to like this. Why do you think they did that?
So they actually did that in order to sort of break away from Pidgin Sign Language and sort of become a more complex language. So L is very simple because it represents language, and they wanted ASL to be like held in a more respected manner. So they're trying to make the language more complicated and use different hand signals that don't necessarily start with the first letter of the word.
Thank you.
Do you think ASL is the most important part of the deaf culture?
Yeah, I think ASL is probably the biggest thing that brings the deaf community together because it's a way of communication, and without communication, it's kind of hard to have a uniform culture. If that concludes our questions, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.